music to just come washing over us. It's so marvelous. So I just want to start, and we will go to the audience later for questions, so start thinking of some. I want to start by talking about the casting, which I think is really interesting in this film, because if someone didn't know anything about this movie, and I said, well, it's about this incredibly strong bond between these two young men, one of whom is, kind of this jock and lady killer, and the other one is this eccentric person who has a nervous breakdown and ends up in a mental institution, and it stars Matthew Modine and Nick Cage. People might not automatically assume that you play the person who ends up in the mental hospital. And I just wonder what the casting...
Saying that I'm a handsome jock?
Hey, I saw Vision Quest. I mean, you're right. So what was the casting process like?
This was a film that every young actor of my generation wanted to play. So I just down the street here on 7th Avenue, I met Alan Parker, and it was the beginning, those early days of video cameras, and he had a small VHS camera, and he got right in my face, just inches from my face, and I had auditioned for Al Columbato.
So you had
to what you were saying,
yeah.
And I never ever imagined myself playing Birdy. And I got a film called Mrs. Sofa with Diane Keaton and Mel Gibson, and we were up in Toronto, and I got a phone call from Alan Parker saying, congratulations, you're going to be in the movie. And I said, are you going to change the guy's name? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, he's Italian-American. Am I going to play Italian-American, or are you going to change his name? He goes, no, he said, you're going to play Birdy. I said, what? No, I auditioned for Al. I'm not Birdy. Birdy is this delicate, fragile creature, and there was some friends of mine that I imagined playing the part, and I just never imagined. He goes, no, you're going to be great. And I'm not religious, but I got down on my hands and knees when we got close to filming and asked that all the people in the world that had ever been mistreated and abused and suffered from, we didn't have the term then, post-traumatic stress. It was shell shock. And the book took place in the Second World War, not the Vietnam War. But to come and help me to play this part, and I swear to God, man, I felt like a rush of souls that came into me to help me and guide me through the playing of the part. And the interesting thing about that is that from that time, when we hear about reincarnation, we think like we're going to come back as an elephant or a deer or an eagle or something, but isn't it interesting that the physical characteristics that we have, our skin, the shape of our nose, the texture of our hair, the color of our skin, all these things are inherited from people that came before us. And so in a way, shouldn't we inherit, just as we inherit these physical attributes, that we should inherit the wants and desires and dreams and aspirations of those people that came before us? And maybe that's what reincarnation is. So when I got down on my hands and knees and asked for help to play this part, if it wasn't people externally outside of my body, it certainly was my ancestors that came to help to guide me. And so I say thank you to them.
So you're hoping for this inspiration to come from somewhere, somewhere. But were there practical things that you did to prepare for this and research this?
Yeah, I had to, Nick Cage pulled his teeth. He had baby teeth, these front teeth, and so he was always planning on having them removed and having implants because he didn't have adult teeth behind the baby teeth. So he used that as an opportunity, because of the head wound, to take his teeth out. And it was right after Robert De Niro had done Raging Bull, and so there was a lot of conversation and talk and about what are you willing to do for the role? And Nick,
he pulled his teeth.
He never said that he had baby teeth and he was going to do it anyway, so he kind of rode that ride for a while. But I lost about 30 pounds to do the film because I had done Vision Quest.
Right.
And I was trying to gain weight all the time to catch the guy that I was wrestling because he was so much bigger than me. But I never felt that it was important to talk about having lost the weight because, you know, would it change the experience for you watching the film knowing that I'd lost 28 or 30 pounds? It doesn't seem important. What's important is that the training that I received from the great Stella Adler, the coaching that the inspiration that I received from my wife, the guidance that she helped provide me with from her perspective on life, which is always wonderful to have somebody who's really much smarter than you to help to guide you and give you inspiration. And so I had her, I had Stella, I had my grandmother, my mother. They were great teachers in my life. I don't know that you can teach acting, but you can certainly teach people to be better human beings. And I think that that's a prerequisite to being in most of the arts, is to have an understanding. Harper Lee says it best. She says in her book To Kill a Mockingbird that we never really understand another person until we get inside their skin and move around in it. Because when you get inside someone's skin, like that old saying, you walk a mile in my shoes, that we see ourselves in others, our shared humanity. And when you see yourself in another person, it's quite hard to be cruel to them. And we certainly need more of that in the world. Being able to see that. I agree.
On the more nuts and bolts thing, what about all these animals that you're working with on the film? I mean,
the birds were very difficult. If you watch my behavior, you can see that it's almost I had to slow my heart down and move so slowly because they're frightened. You know, they're dinosaurs, they're living dinosaurs, and so you have to work at their pace and their rhythm. And it was kind of a miracle that we found a way to be able to work with the birds. The funny thing was that Alan Parker was terrified of birds. He was just shit scared of birds. Like whenever they'd start flapping, he'd cringe and really run in the other room. I think he'd seen Alfred Hitchcock's movie The Birds too many times. He was just really frightened of it. I'll tell you a story because I know you won't ask it. In that scene where I'm perched on the bed, where I found my balance on the edge of the bed, they spent, I'm not kidding you, like 2 hours getting the light up in that window to shine this shaft of light. And I was just on the side of the bed, you know, if this is the shaft of light, so I was here. And so having spent 2 hours putting the light there, and they filmed me sitting like this, and I said to Alan Parker, I said, could I try a different pose? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, Alan, could I try another pose? Now, this is the important part. I'm standing in front of him, butt naked, completely naked. And I was, Alan, could I try a different pose? He goes, right, everybody shut. I'm sorry. He has a British accent. Is there any British people here? I'm going to do a Dick Van Dyke accent now. Right. Everybody shut the fuck up. Modine's directing the movie now. I said, Alan, I'm not trying to direct the movie. I'm just suggesting that why don't I try a different pose? I mean, we did that one. It won't take any time. I'll just, right, what are you going to do then? I said, I don't know, Alan. I said, maybe I try to perch on the bed, find my balance. How are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, Alan, let me try. And I got up naked and found my balance on the bed frame. And Michael Saracen, who's the director of photography on the thing, he said, oh my gosh, look at that. It makes a beautiful shadow on the wall, like a bird. And Alan was really angry now because it did look really good. And he goes, right, let's shoot it, but reach down and grab your bollocks. You're spoiling the shot. So
I'm not
not sitting like this, I'm sitting like this.
Too much information.
Well, you had the ratings board to worry about. You had to keep things clean. It must have been though. I mean, what you're just saying, it must have been a grueling shoot. I mean, you spend so much of this film naked on cold, hard floors, and some of those, and that perch on the bed could not have been easy to hold. I mean, was this a physically grueling movie to do?
It was, but I've had really difficult jobs. I've dug ditches. I've worked as an electrician in Oklahoma. I've had really hard jobs. So it's such a, I don't know who said it, that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day of your life. I'm so happy that when you think of how many hundreds of thousands of people come to New York or Hollywood and climb over those hills trying to do what I'm blessed to be able to do, I would never complain about having to be naked and sitting on a cold, hard floor. I won, man. I won the lottery.
And again, if anyone has a question, raise your hand. People will bring you a mic so that we can all hear what you have to say. Someone is circling around with one.
Matthew Modine. More than a comment than it is a question. Jorge Gabino and Kevin, we love you, brother.
Look at you
Thank
guys.
you.
Look at you guys. Introduce yourselves. We worked on a movie together called The Fuse, which I saw it, respected it, loved it. I saw it up at Woodstock, and that's the director, Kevin. And introduce yourselves.
Jorge Gabino, I'm the lead actor in The Fuse.
Yeah.
I'm Kevin.
And that's Kevin. Kevin's from Switzerland.
Love you, brother.
I suspect he's got gold.
Thank you so much for coming out. I have to ask you,
Is your wife with you?
She was on neither.
Not.
She's home with the kids.
Oh, home with the kids. All right. It's a great movie. It's called The Fuse, and it's a beautiful film. It got almost shortlisted for the Academy Awards. Yeah.
you mentioned working with all of these animals. I have to ask because I heard some gasps. Was that a stunt cat? I mean, no animals were hurt, I assume, in the filming of this movie?
Yeah, it was difficult to pretend as though I was pulling the bird out of the cat's mouth. That was a really good cat. I mean, he was mean looking, right? I mean, he was a real mean looking Tom. We didn't. The seagull at the dump. The dump was really bad, and now that was 1983, and we were all aware of the plastic problems that exist in the world, and that was all you saw at that dump, which is one of the most toxic places I have ever been. The place where I fell in the water, they dug a hole and they put gunite, which is what they used to make the first layer of a swimming pool. But all the garbage leached into that water, and I'm sure that Nick Cage and I are going to die. It was bad. It was the worst smell you ever smelled in your life. Just imagine, all that garbage. It was probably 80 feet deep and as big as a mountain. Oh, it was bad. It was really bad. And they kept dropping me in the water. Now, Nick Cage says, why is it that every time you got hurt, I got sick? He told Alan Parker, now I just got dropped 30 feet they dropped me and into that water. And with that thing on my back, belly flop, all that nasty water in my mouth. And Nick told Alan Parker that he didn't want to go, achoo! He said, I feel silly. I feel like one of the Three Stooges. Achoo! And Alan Parker said, well, don't worry about it because I'll put it in post. We can just put it in post. But that was my cue to say, gesundheit, or whatever. I don't remember what I said. And he wasn't doing it. And so Alan Parker kept screaming at me because he kept thinking I was forgetting my line, which, gesundheit.
Yeah.
And he was horrible. Now, on set he was horrible, but in life he was a lovely sweetheart. I love Alan Parker. But on sets, and if there are any directors in the house, you know that what a director's up against all the time is time. And so you have two young actors, and you're trying to get the best from them. And so sometimes you had to be kind of mean and ugly, and I forgive him for all of that because he made a terrific film. And he made Alan Parker's got to be one of the best directors of his generation because it's, absolutely. Bugsy Malone, Fame, Angel Heart, even the Madonna movie, the Evita, what else? Commitments?
Yeah.
Which one? Midnight Express. Oh my God. Yeah. He's really versatile, huh?
And he came to this movie having just done The Wall, and so he said it was a much more pleasant experience working on this than it was getting through that. Before you had done this film, you had done another pretty heavy Vietnam era film, Streamers, with Robert Altman, and smart film fan in the audience. You've done that. I mean, you did Memphis Belle. Of course, you did Full Metal Jacket. Amazing films all. And I just wonder, do you feel a special responsibility to tell these stories of servicemen and women?
I do. I mean, war is the destruction of life. If I look at one of the films, Full Metal Jacket with Stanley Kubrick, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, it begins with early man discovering that they can take a bone and turn it into a tool that they can use to beat another person's head in. And then maybe the greatest cut that ever existed in the history of film was throwing the bone up in the air where it becomes a spaceship. And what he was able to do with an edit was compress time. That it wasn't that long ago that we were naked and hairy and discovering fire. It was just a moment ago when we think of things in geological time or astronomical time. It's really just a moment ago. And so that's our past, and this is our present, where we are right now. Really continuing to be on the verge of nuclear annihilation. That there are thousands of bombs in Russia, thousands of bombs in the United States. We tested 972 after the bomb in Los Alamos that Oppenheimer detonated, the Trinity test. We've tested 972 bombs in the United States above and below ground. That's the radiation has fallen all over the country, and people get cancer to this day from those bombs that were tested. So we're really not any more intelligent than those early men who discovered a bone and beat somebody's head in. We just have better tools to be able to do it and to be able to kill more people. So I know that violence is not the solution to the problems that we face. It's not going to help the environmental problems that we have. It's not going to help solve the economic disparity that's getting, the gap that's growing every day. And so the problems that we face are up to us to find the solution. That we can't rely on a two-party political system because it doesn't work. It's up to each and every one of us. Yeah, we got to figure it out.
And that I guess you feel you have a special responsibility too. I mean, not just as a member of the human race, but as an artist. And I'm not trying to embarrass you here, but I've heard the story that you had the chance to do Top Gun. You said, no, I don't want to do a movie that glorifies war. That's not the kind of story I want to tell. True?
Yes. It's kind of war pornography. It's kind of it's not even good sex. It's masturbation, and not that there's anything wrong with that. Some of the best times of my life.
Well, there's the full quote for the tabloids tomorrow.
But No, it's true that if you're on a raised platform and people are looking up at you, people watching you on a movie screen larger than life, or coming into people's homes on television, then the things that you do, the things that you say will have an impact on people's lives. And I've played bad guys. I don't enjoy it. But I suppose it's good for us to be able to recognize something that's evil so that we can stay away from it and push it away from us. I got in this business because I wanted to be an agent for positivity and change, and being a solution to a problem, not somebody who's creating them. And I get great pleasure out of that. I just did To Kill a Mockingbird in London for 10 months. And it was great pleasure to come to the theater every night and play Atticus Finch. And every night go home thinking, tomorrow I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win tomorrow, I'm gonna solve this problem, I'm gonna fix this problem that exists in this country. You know, and it was a great pleasure to perform at the John Gielgud Theater. I grew up in Utah, so imagine the pleasure of being able to work in London in the John Gielgud Theater, telling that story to British people.
I saw it and you were great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, do we have another question
Hi,
from the
yes.
audience?
Follow that with a question, which is, I was in your acting class with Stella Adler.
Really?
And, yeah, I talked, oh gosh, I don't think I need a microphone. And I heard you mention, the way you mentioned Stella Adler's name today, it sounded to me as if maybe she also coached you a little bit on Birdy. Was that the case? And I'd love to just to know what you would share about how Stella Adler affected you, because she was such a genius.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see you. What a crazy time that was at Stella Adler's Conservatory of Acting around the corner. I think I've evoked her spirit here a couple times. I mean, certainly the responsibility that we have as artists, as you know, yeah, Stella Adler. The human being is Stella Adler. My father was a drive-in theater manager, and I saw a movie called Little Big Man. Amazing movie, right? Little Big Man, Dustin Hoffman, and in the film, all the movies that played at my father's drive-in that I saw about cowboys and Indians, it was always about the white settlers being attacked by savage Indians, these savages. And Little Big Man was the first time that they turned the camera, they pivoted it so that we saw we saw the world from another point of view. We saw it from the Native American being attacked by savage white people, and the result of that. And there was the grandfather, the adopted grandfather of Dustin Hoffman, was a great actor named Chief Dan George. He called himself a human being. The Native Americans he called human beings. And I was going to school with Navajo at the time that I saw the film, sitting on the ground at my dad's drive-in, holding the speaker, watching this movie. And I had all the shame of being a white man in Utah and seeing what had happened to the Navajo people that I was going to school with from the reservations. And from that point, about 11 or 12 years old, all I wanted to be was a human being. Now, cut to 8 years later, I'm in New York City going into audition for Stella Adler at the Stella Adler's Conservatory of Acting. And it was a big room, like the size of this theater. And she was sitting across the way with a secretary who was really nervous. And then she was at a desk writing, and they said, and I came into the room, and it was just her and the assistant, and she said, Matthew Modine. And Stella finally turned around and she looked at me. And she said, if you've come here for me to teach you how to be a movie star, you should turn around and leave right now. I don't teach that. If I'm lucky, I'll teach you to be a human being. And I started crying because 8 years before that, I was begging to be a human being, and now here I found a teacher who was going to help me to fulfill that dream. Yeah.
I think we had a question.
Hi, yes. I know you already mentioned, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Great film. You'd mentioned losing weight. What else did you do emotionally, psychologically to get to that place, and how long did that take? How much time did you have to prepare for that?
I think that you're preparing your whole life, for the moment. That everything that you are up to that moment, everything that I knew and I'd learned and I'd studied at Stella's. I studied with another man named Art Wolf, a scene study class. And certainly, when the war came home for me, when my oldest brother Mark Jr. Went to Vietnam, he was a swift boat driver and in the Navy, and where the war was something that was, you sort of had objectivity to. When I knew that he was in Vietnam, then the war came home. Now the statistics of they died, the number of theirs died and ours died. Now I was watching Walter Cronkite, wondering if they were going to mention my brother, and then my brother Michael, and then my brother Russell, and my sister Elizabeth. They all
your siblings served.
all joined the Navy. Yeah, my father was in the Merchant Marine, and my uncle was a B-17 pilot. And I wore my uncle's dress uniform in Memphis Belle. He flew 17 combat missions as the captain of B-17. What I was doing in the movie, and so that was pretty special. But yeah, so all those stories about war and as a child, you run around with a toy gun playing cowboys and Indians. You run around with a gun playing soldiers, throwing dirt clods at each other. I feel like I was preparing for it my whole life. And then, as I said before, I really did get down on my knees and beg that somebody could give me some guidance and to help me to play that role. And it really did fill me up. And the other thing was I had William Morton's book. This film is based on a book, and so yeah, William Morton, the great William Morton. That was a great thing. The interesting thing is, if you read the book, that was clapping. I'm assuming you did. A lot of people think that Al and Birdy are the same person, that they're the yin and the yang of the same person. That the psychological problems that Al is having, and if you look at the parents and you switch them around, Al's father was abusive, Birdy's mother was abusive. I asked William Morton when I met him at the Cannes Film Festival, where the film won the Grand Prix, if that was the case, and he said, "If it is, I'd never tell you."
Well, that goes to one of the great things I think about the part of Birdy and the way you play him, is that I think it would be so common to, no pun intended, to pigeonhole Birdy as, he's on the spectrum, or he's a survivor of some childhood abuse, or, let's put a diagnosis on him. And the film doesn't do that, and you don't let the film do that.
He's just a special person.
Yeah.
When the movie came out, and I'd be walking around New York City, there were people would see me, recognize me, and hug me. They start crying. And there was a lot of people that were just so grateful that there'd been a film that was made about them, that a misunderstood person, a person who had suffered. And because films don't usually tell stories about people like Birdy. And so they felt like, oh, thank you, there's somebody who understands me and made a movie about me. And so, yeah, I got a lot of, which I've learned yesterday, that if you hug somebody for 20 seconds or kiss for 6 seconds, only 6, that it increases your oxytocin. And for the men in the audience, it will extend your life 4 years. So be sure to give somebody a hug for 20 seconds or a kiss for 6. That's my advice.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions from the audience, if anyone has one.
Hi. Oh, it's on. Hi. I just wanted to, you and Nick Cage are both so wonderful in the film, and your chemistry together is so great. I'm wondering, did you guys have any sort of rehearsal process, or you have so many scenes together, would you just work through them on the day, or did you have some time together before you started shooting to work through scenes? How did that work?
Yeah, my wife and I went out to Los Angeles to meet him, and I was married then. Honey, you robbed the cradle. We went out to Los Angeles, and I liked this place out there. It was called Fat Burger. And so I took Nick to Fat Burger, and he said, "Oh, now you got to come to my place." We went to Pink's, famous hot dogs. And then we were sick to our stomach from eating so much. So we went to the Santa Monica Pier, which we felt was kind of like that. I guess it was supposed to be Atlantic City in the film. And we went to the one on the roller coasters and just, you know, goofed around. We had our pictures because we wanted to make sure that Alan Parker knew that we were hanging, because he wanted us to hang out and meet each other. So we sent one of those strips, you know, where you make funny faces. And yeah, Nick and I, it's interesting for the actors in the room. Nick asked me when we began filming, he said, "You're not one of those actors that tries to mess the other actor up, are you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You know, like when you're off camera that you'll say the lines differently, or, you know, try to mess me up so that I don't look good." And I said, "Who have you been working with?" So you're going to have to do your research.
The detective work. And
Look at his resume before me. But no, for me, it's always about the scene. How do we make the scene better? How do we, you know, work together as a team to make the scene good? And it's funny, Nick doesn't talk about Birdy, and I've seen him a couple times over the years, and he says, "I don't talk about it because it's not mine." And I said, "It's ours." And he goes, "No, it's yours. You're Birdy. The movie's yours." And I saw the film. They played it down at the Roxy a couple months ago now, and it couldn't be anything further from the truth. Nick Cage is so beautiful and so delicate and so sensitive in the film. Did you notice his hands, his fingers? He's got such delicate, like, pianist fingers, you know. He's a really sensitive person. Yeah.
And the scene work in this must have been really tough on both of you, because for most of the film, particularly in the hospital films, you're not making eye contact, so you're not bouncing that back and forth between the two of you. So that must have been an extra challenge too.
It was.
Do we have another question? I thought we did up here. Yeah.
I was just curious about, you said that, like, many people in your family served, but did you have any pressure to serve in the military?
No, the draft was finished. All my brothers and my sister joined, I think because she wanted to get married. She wanted to get out of the house. So going in the Navy was an easy way to get out of Utah. And but yeah, the draft was finished. It was finished when I was in high school. But when I was in high school, we used to sneak. Then we lived in San Diego, Imperial Beach, California. It's right in the corner of the United States, most southwesterly city in America. And down the beach is Coronado. And we used to sneak onto the underwater demolition team obstacle course. And we had this thing in our mind that we were going to all become UDT, Underwater Demolitions Team, SEALs. And I became an actor. I'd rather play one in the movies than be one. It's hard work, man. There's no SEALs in the room, are there? That's another. They bring you to the point of death, so you know what it tastes like and what it feels like, so that when you're in a really bad situation, you go, "Oh no, I got a long way to go before I'm dead," you know, because they tasted it. They bring you right to the veil, you know, like let you put your hand through to touch the other side, so you know what it feels like. You know, you recognize it.
Well, just finally, I just admire so many of the films that you've done, and I think you've done so much wonderful work. I think it's exciting that a whole new generation just.
This opened on Friday. It's called Hard Miles. It's a great movie about it's a true story about a guy named Greg Townsend who took troubled youth. He worked at a reform school and thought, if I can teach these kids how to make bicycles, to weld them together in his welding class, and then take them on a really arduous ride from Denver, Colorado to the Grand Canyon, they'd be able to see that the world is bigger than the troubled home that they come from, bigger than the gang that they were in, bigger than the eating disorder that one of them has. Like the things on a horse, those blinders, that he could peel them back and help them to see that the world's a really big and beautiful place. So he takes them on this ride, and it's a little Bad News Bears, it's a little Breaking Away, it's a little Vision Quest, and it's a terrific movie. It's gotten great reviews, won a bunch of awards. I recommend it.
And that was my last question, which you anticipated, is like what you have coming up, what you're looking forward to as an actor, as a director. What's next?
There's another movie. It's still playing the festivals. It's playing at the Santa Fe Film Festival this weekend called The Martini Shot with John Cleese and Derek Jacobi. I'm a film director who might be God, and he's dying. He's terminal. And so his psychiatrist says that maybe you should make a movie. Maybe that'll make you feel better. And John Cleese is my doctor, and he says, well, if you're going to do it, you better do it quick. Because you don't got much time. So he starts casting dead people and to star in his movie. Derek Jacobi is one of the dead people. But you still have to pay the union. They're covered.
Well,
It's the Martini Shot. It's really terrific.
Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for the work.